Hello and welcome. My name is Ajaxpost and we're here with Transport Fever 2 in what is probably the last of my Get to Know series. Well, certainly the last before the release of the game, which, as I'm recording this, is tomorrow, the 11th of December 2019. Of course, if there's anything else you fancy knowing, if you want me to show off or attempt to explain about the game, if there's something that you're not quite certain of, then by all means do let me know. Either just drop a note into the comments box below, or if you use one of those fancy social media things, Twitter or Instagram, I'm on there too. So if that's how you want to connect, then it'd be lovely to hear from you through there too. So all the details for those things are in the description below. Now, this particular episode is going to be a roundup of a few sort of odd little things that I've seen in the game, which I've sort of skipped over in the past, or have prompted me to have another look at and try and get a little more understanding of certain features that we looked at in earlier episodes of this series. Now, in fact, the game has gone through about 3, perhaps even 4 updates since I was very generously offered a pre-release key by Urban Games. So some things we're seeing now are actually a little bit different to what we saw just 2 weeks ago. And it's quite possible, of course, there'll be another release there'll be another update to this before the actual official release. So things may change, so bear that in mind. Now, the first place I want to start is here on the main screen and looking at one or two of the setup things for the game. Now, if you're familiar with Transport Fever and you were playing it towards the end of, as it were, the game's life before the release of this new one, if you had the latest patches installed, i.e. you hadn't given up on it after a few months of getting it years ago, there's a couple of keys in there which we became really used to. Well, I certainly did. And when I first got Transport Fever 2, I tried to use these keys and they were nowhere to be found, and I was bemused, confused, disappointed. But fear not, they are actually there. The keys I'm talking about are the page up and page down keys, which you can use to raise the level of a piece of track or a length of road or whatever, without using the M or N keys, which sort of raise the middle of that stretch. So by using the page up and page down keys, you can sort of raise the track or lower the track at the start point to a certain height above or below the actual level of the terrain itself. Now, in fact, as I only recently discovered just a little while ago in Transport Fever, you can actually do that with buildings as well. So when you're putting down stations and bus stops and things like that, you can actually raise that building up or down, above or below the ground by using the page up and page down keys. But by default in Transport Fever 2, they're not there. And that's because, although obviously they were very useful and important to us when we got to them in Transport Fever, I don't know why, but they've been changed. So if you're new to the game, this will probably mean nothing to you. But if you're familiar with Transport Fever, then this is perhaps useful for you to know. The up and down keys are actually here. They're in the controls in the settings. Construction option 3 and construction option 4. Not terribly helpful, to be honest. And construction option 3 is page up, and construction option 4 page down. So, or you could in fact use any keys you like if you prefer. I don't like using the comma and the full stop, or as some people call the period key, because I don't use that part of the keyboard when I'm playing games. If that's not an issue for you, if you're a keyboard warrior properly, then it might be helpful to have the comma and the full stop key as your page up and page down, because they are right next to the M and N keys. But for old hands like me, I got used to the page up and page down, and they're a nice place for me on my keyboard. So that's what I like to play with. Now on here, as you can see, you can map almost anything you like. So there's lots of things here you can fiddle with and change to suit your particular style of play. That's the only thing that worries me in the game, so I'm going to leave those as is. Okay, another thing here to notice is when you're loading a game, a saved game or a new game, you can actually add mods to it. If we go back to a free game. So if we go here, we'll wait for it to generate the map. Okay, if you're looking at the map, you can add mods to it by going, if I go back again, by selecting custom, going into settings and picking your set of mods to run the game with. Just click them here. This is all very familiar to us from Transport Fever, so that's not a problem. So just pick which ones you want. And on this, if you've been confused by other people's videos of gameplay within Transport Fever 2, I know I was. I thought, where are they getting the Sandbox option from? Because when I went into the game, I just saw easy, medium and hard difficulty levels. I didn't see Sandbox. Sandbox is a sort of built-in free script mod, as it says here, provided by Urban Games. And this actually allows you complete control of the game while in gameplay. And we'll look at that in a moment. I'm actually going to turn Sandbox mode on for one of the game features I want to show off to you a little later in this episode. But if we're adding mods to the game, we can just click them. We want whichever ones we want on here. I'm just selecting a few like that. So we'll enable those. Now, as in the previous game, Transport Fever, you don't get achievements if you have any mods turned on, including the built-in ones, as it were, from Urban Games themselves. So any mod will turn off achievements. So if I were to save that, okay. And then when I go in, I'll play the game, I'll save it again or whatever. And when I come back to reload the game, I come to load game. If I go into, say, this one here, I can see, yeah, I've got all those mods that were added to the game, so they're listed there for me. If I want to add more mods to the game, to my save game, I simply come here and click which ones I want to add into the game. And you can see there, they're given a sort of order in which they're loaded. You can't change that number directly to my knowledge. If you want to change the order, then you have to deselect the mod and then select whichever one you want to be loaded before it and then reselect it. I've not had a big issue with that, but I know in Transport Fever there were a few mods which had to be loaded in a particular order because one built upon the other. Now, this is a big alert. This may change on the release version, so as I said, I'm still working with slightly pre-release software. But one thing you don't see here, which we did see in Transport Fever, was there's no warning symbol here to say if you disable this mod, your game will crash. Now in Transport Fever we had, I think it was 2 levels of alert. Well, there was 3. There was no alert whatsoever, which meant it was safe to remove this mod without impacting on the gameplay itself. Often that applied to sort of cosmetic things or certain asset mods or whatever. Certainly if you hadn't used the asset in the gameplay, if it hadn't been part of the save game you were trying to load. There were other mods where it said, I'm not entirely sure, there might be an issue. Things might not work correctly if you take this mod out. Again, that could probably be mostly sort of cosmetic style mods and script mods which might have affected the way the sort of game mechanics work somewhat. And then there were other mods which if you deleted them or disabled them, they would crash a game. It simply would not work, and they were mostly the game asset mods in terms of vehicles and stations and so on. So if I, for example, decided I don't actually want to run the Class 37 locomotive anymore, if I disable that mod now, my game will in fact crash. I've done it 4 times already today and it just crashes. There is no error message, there's no warning at all. Be aware of that. If you're going to be using mods in the game, if you're not seeing an alert there, it does not necessarily mean that the game won't crash if you disable that mod. So hopefully they will fix that in the release version, that it will tell you that this mod is in use in your game and taking it out will cause problems. As I said, I didn't get any alerts or messages. The game simply crashed out. I'm running Windows 7 64-bit, obviously. It may be different on Windows 10 or other operating systems, Mac or whatever the game is released on, but do be aware of that. The same rules for mods seem to apply in Transport Fever 2 as they did in Transport Fever, that if you take an asset out which is actually in use in your game, you will in all likelihood have problems. So just be aware of that when you're starting to use mods in your game. Okay, now what I want to look at first within the gameplay here is actually country roads and limiting town sizes. This has cropped up a couple of times in the questions or comments rather on previous episodes of the Get to Know series, so I thought I'd try a bit of an experiment. So what I'm going to do now is going to go into a sort of save game, a very early save game, and explain to you what I'm going to do in an attempt to show one way or another if we can control the size or boundaries of our towns in Transport Fever 2. So bear with me for a moment and we'll get this game loaded up. And so here we are in my little saved map. It's only a medium-sized map. I don't want it to be too big anyway, because we're just trying to show off a particular feature of the game. Now, first thing before we get into this, I have loaded this game with Sandbox mode enabled, the Sandbox mod, rather more accurately. And what that means is I actually have, within gameplay, complete control over the environment. So I have these new buttons here, towns and industries, which actually allows me to place or delete towns within the map if I so wish. So for example, where have we got a nice... Now the map itself, in case you're wondering, is created automatically by the game, kind of, in that I set it with the dry climate. I always get these mixed up. It was map created automatically as a dry climate map, but then in my custom settings I applied the tropical environment to it, which is why it's this sort of green but canyon kind of layout. It's kind of odd looking. Anyway, I want somewhere with a beach. That's kind of beach-like, isn't it? Yep, so if I want to put a new town down here, we'll have a small beachside community. So if we put you down there, and it draws a town. So there it is. It's created this town called Newport, Shropshire, which, if you're not familiar with the UK, it's because we have several Newports in the UK. One of which is in Shropshire. There's another Newport which I think is near, well, I know is near Cardiff in South Wales, and there's probably several other Newports around as well. So I'm not quite sure why it needs to tell us here in the map that that is Newport, but what the heck. As you can see here, the Sandbox mode gives us complete control over the town as well, in that we can select what commercial and industrial products are the cargo requirements for this town, what size it is or whatever, and we can, within any town, not just new towns, I'll do it on an existing one, shall I? Sheffield. We can actually set in here, because I'm in Sandbox mode, the actual cargo requirements of this town. So if I don't want tools and construction materials to be the requirements for Sheffield, I can change them here, and I can probably set up here the land use numbers as well, which goes into the population charts, but we'll come on to that later. And of course, if I use the industries button, I can lay down new industries if I see fit. Do I actually need... which towns am I working? I'm working with Billericay and Sheffield here. They don't look too... I'm not going to worry about that. But you can, as you can see, we can set down as we need any industries that we want to add to the game, or indeed take out industries if we so wish. That's Sandbox mode, and that's simply a mod that you load when you start the game up. Okay, right, now what we're trying to do in this map here, is work out if we can control the size of our towns at all. Now, when I was looking at the map editor, and there'll be a link somewhere around here, hopefully, to my top 11 tips for the map editor in Transport Fever 2, one of the questions asked was, is there a way, please, that we can limit the size of our towns and our cities? Because if you get everything right in the game, if you get all the cargo delivered as demanded, if you satisfy all the residential requirements and you keep emissions down low, then every town on the map could grow to be as big as it can possibly be. You can't keep certain towns as small sort of beachside resorts, for example. So if Newport, I'm going to change that, that's annoying me. Just Newport. Click in it and then it lets you edit it. There you go. So I can't keep Newport, for example. It's a nice small little beachside community. As far as I'm aware, there is no way within the map editor of saying these towns can only grow by so much percentage or to a certain maximum population or whatever. I'm not certain if there's a way in the config file to do that. There was in Transport Fever. There were a couple of growth parameters which you could use to kind of limit the rate and growth of and sort of final population of towns in a kind of roundabout kind of way, and I'm not sure that fits here. So what's been suggested, as many people try to do in Transport Fever, is if we can set country roads around a town, that will stop the town building, stop the AI building residences, industry and commercial zones along that road. That never worked in Transport Fever because the AI would always, if it wanted to expand the town, turn your country roads into town roads. What we can do, however, in Transport Fever 2 is I can put down, like I've done here, all my country roads, both small, medium and 4-lane country roads around my town, and this really good new feature of the game is I've locked them. So these are now player-owned stretches of road. So you see the highlighted lock symbol and the greyed out lock symbol. So these bits of road are player-owned. And what that means is the road cannot be upgraded by the AI. So that road should always stay small country road or 4-lane country road, whatever it is, or whatever road type it is. It will not be upgraded automatically by the AI, but it does not necessarily mean that the AI will not build alongside that road. So what we're going to try and find out here is if I try and develop and meet the demands of this city, which I think was Billericay, indeed it is, will it actually build alongside the country roads or not? Or will it only ever build, as it should, theoretically, on urban or town roads? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay in some train and bus services and freight services and see if I can get this town growing as best I can. Now, one thing I wanted to show off here, which is why I've not completed this train route between Billericay and Sandwich. I don't think I showed this off in a previous video of mine, but I want to do it here. In Transport Fever, an industry had just one point of entry or exit. In Transport Fever 2, it has connection points all the way around. So if I actually delete this bit of road here, my cargo station there is now not connected, but if I add back in some country road, just small lanes, and draw it along here, you see I'm getting connection points there, those blue symbols connecting between my piece of road and this asset, this factory here. So I've got that in there, and that can go, that's very bad, that can go around there. Oh, it doesn't like joining up. There you go, that'll do. So you can actually whatever the position of your industry, you can connect to it from almost anywhere around it. You're not limited in location, as it were. So if I connect you back there, and when I connect on my, yep, that's perfectly well highlighted. So that, again, I can't honestly remember, I really ought to check what I've recorded if I mentioned that in a previous video, but that's one really nice feature I like of the new industry system within Transport Fever 2. So I'm going to put down some routes, add in some vehicles, get this running, run it on a few years, and see if my locked country roads actually do limit the size of Billericay. So I'll be back with you on the other side of a reasonably fancy, well, a video effect. See you in a moment. Well, here we are. We've had nearly 4 years of development here in Billericay, and as you can see, I already have a major traffic problem. But actually, if I just watch this for a second, this highlights one feature of the new bus lane and traffic light system. Hopefully, if the lights change sometime soon. See pedestrians crossing there in front of that traffic. Yes, if you put a bus lane on a road at a traffic light intersection, your traffic has precedence over the private traffic, which is exactly as it should be, of course. Look at that. Actually, that private traffic is stuck there for ages. That's not good, is it? There it goes eventually. Yes, good. Anyway, so what can we see in terms of the sort of the main purpose of this exercise is I have all these country roads here around the outside of my city. And although there has been lots of development alongside it, none of it is actually attached to the country road. It's all attached to the town road inside, so that's fine. The game is not building on country roads. And why has it not upgraded those roads to town roads so it can build? Because, as you recall, I locked them. I used this lock symbol here to mark them as non-upgradable, as player owned. Now this may well change. Now I've unlocked that stretch. I don't know if it'll put country roads out there. Town roads. Why do I keep getting it wrong? Town roads out there. You might upgrade those. So that does seem to be the trick. If you want to put a boundary on your town, then one way of achieving that might be, as we thought it would, is to lay out country roads, but to make sure they are not upgradable, and you do that by using the lock system in the street traffic map, which is excellent. Okay, final words on the map here. The roundabout I put in here because there was a lot of traffic congestion coming up, because there's a fair amount of traffic, as you can see, between Billericay and Sheffield. And there was a big junction here. There was a lot of traffic, as you can again see on this traffic overlay here. That's very busy. That's very, very busy. So I put a roundabout in there. We did look at roundabouts in the previous episode, and that's this icon here. They do appear around 1960, as far as I can see. Now, the one thing you can't do with a roundabout is put bus lanes on. Now, if you want to actually limit it, the traffic, if you want to put more controls on your roundabout, you can upgrade the individual segments by using the streets here. So if we make this, say, 2-lane but with a bus lane, I can upgrade it. Unfortunately, there is no. I've got 3 lanes on here, which is fine, but yeah, that might not be what I want. Three lines. Oh, that's new. This is a new style. 3 new vehicles available. So rather than just listing all the way down the screen, they are constantly upgrading, updating, and improving. Gives you the speed and the cost. That's really nice. That's a nice new touch. Anyway, back to the roundabout. So I can change this now to a 2-lane, but with bus lane, which isn't terribly helpful, because actually, there's 1 way. What would that do? Actually, just looking at that, let's change that. Upgrade. What's that given me? Oh, I need to change it back to 1 way. So, as we saw, 1-way roads. There you go. How does that work? Aha! Right, yes, so 1-way road with bus lane, 2-lane country road, that works fine. Now the question is, no, I'm not getting signals there, that's okay. Can I upgrade that one? Yep. And that bit, and that bit, and it's all 2-lane roundabout with a bus lane. And if I put in there traffic lights here, I think, and traffic lights here, and why not traffic lights there? That should, will that give my vehicles precedence? Of course, I have no buses at the moment on this bit of road, so I'm not sure if it will help to it. Look at that, the actual indicators. I can't honestly remember if we had indicators on... Oh, it does! On Transport Fever 1, but yes, so vehicles in the bus lane here have precedence with traffic lights. So that's a nice, nice little extra feature. But Yeah, my roundabout is becoming clogged because I put traffic lights on there. I've messed it up, haven't I? So what was... Yeah, actually it's going to get worse, basically, down there. So be careful. One-way systems, bus lanes and stuff on roundabouts are okay, but they may not work perfectly. What if I actually check... I'm sorry, just keep tinkering here now. If I made that 4-lane... That's... Actually, that's not 4-lane. Oh, it's 3-lane. Why didn't I spot that before? Because it's urban road, isn't it? Of course. Oh, that's interesting. Right. Yes. So the one-way has a 3-lane option, but the ordinary urban road does not. It has 2 or 4 or 6. Interesting. Right. Well, yes. I'm going to draw that to a close. Thank you very much for joining me today. Oh, this is a very busy bus stop there. Now, one thing here, I don't see it on this map at the moment, actually. Do I see another one anywhere? No. What you will see is, in addition to the overlay, in terms of, that's not it, the stations, in terms of the overcrowding colour here, or overloaded as it calls it, you will actually, well, I have seen an issue here in a previous game. There was an icon here, I think it was an eye, an information icon, and if you hovered over that it did tell you that people were leaving the stop because it was overcrowded. So you do get a lot of extra information here. You get a lot of useful information. It tells you what's actually going on. So as we saw here, hover over that and it tells you where they're going, because that's a bi-directional stop. There are, oh no, it's not, it's a one-way. So that's where they're going, to Upper Billericay. Thank you. There go the birds flying. So it tells you exactly where they're going. This I like. There is so much nice new information in here. Oh, the roundabout's sorted itself out. That's good. Right. So yes, we're going to leave that there. So I think we have essentially proved our point that if you can run country roads and lock them around your towns, you can put some limit onto the growth of that town. What I'm going to do, there's quite a few people there, isn't there? Ah, there's the icon, the eye icon. Well, actually, it's an exclamation, isn't it? Some passengers leave because the station is overloaded. Excellent. So I need to obviously put more buses on that route. Yes, I do. Right, we're going to leave, I think, with a little bit of onboard camera. There's our boat. Again, I just love the new graphics here. So even I'm still running this in fairly low graphics actually, because my PC graphics card is only 2 GB, and they do recommend at least 3 GB for medium graphics, and I think it's 4 or 6. If you go back to one of my previous videos, I think it was the first one, I show off what the graphics requirements are for the different qualities in there. So that's it. Thank you very much for joining me today. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of Transport Fever Get to Know. If you have, a like would be very much appreciated. It'd be great. Even better though, if you've got any thoughts, comments, suggestions, recommendations, questions, anything else you'd like me to have a look at or attempt to demonstrate or show off in the game, just drop a note into the comments box below. And of course, if you've not already done so, please do subscribe to the channel, and that way you'll know when I upload another one of these or any more of my videos. Other series. Sorry, I was just my line of sight was caught by the fish. There they go. Actually, on that, so I just stop. It actually tells you what the fish are doing. If you can click on them, salmon school. They're swimming. There they go, and then they will go idle. They will stop. Actually, you can watch them. Are they going to chase the boat? I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. I'll see you again soon. But until then, bye bye for now.